What is up, everybody? We are back with another Warhammer video, and today we are talking about the elephant in the room 3D printing, how to get 10 Leman Russes for the price of 1. This will be a tutorial of sorts, and I'll just show you my process of how I got through and I printed these Leman Russ tanks. So the first thing you do is, fresh from the printer, I will remove it from the printing plate, and then I will get onto removal of the support. So you could use boiling water if you want to make this process a bit easier. I didn't feel like I needed to because I supported all this myself, and that made it a bit easier. This is a model you can find around the place. I believe it's been banned a few times by various people, so it's kind of hard to find now. I did modify it myself somewhat because I like to print my big vehicles in single piece assemblies rather than lots of little parts, because I just find because of the warping and things you might get during 3D printing, it's really hard to assemble these more complicated vehicles when they're in lots of tiny pieces. So I modified it to be one single hull, and then I also modified it to have holes around the weapons to make it easier for magnetizing, and that's the main thing I did. And then we're on to the cleaning process. So I use 100% IPA, which is isopropyl alcohol, and I use a 2-step cleaning method. So first up, I will put the models in a container of, I guess, dirty IPA. So this is IPA that's been through this process for a while. It's become sodden with resin, so now it's unusable for the second stage. So now it's just basically a dirty wash where I get off the majority of the uncured resin. So I'll just put the models in here and I'll let them, sit in there for about an hour. I'll switch it around a bit, but mostly they will just sit in there. And then after around an hour, I will remove them and I'll put them into the second stage, which is a clean container of IPA in a cleaning station. And I put the cleaning station on for about 20 minutes, and then once that's finished, I'll take them out, and then I'll air dry them, and then we're almost on to curing. So once the models are dry from all the IPA, then it's on to the curing step. So this is pretty easy with a curing station. So I've got the wash and cure station from Anycubic, so I can just put this into the same machine. So I just put it on there, and I will put this on for about 20 minutes. Some resin you can overcure, I guess, but I use a ABS-like resin, and it's pretty durable. I've never had any problems with overcuring or undercuring or anything like that. So the process works for me. So once it's in there for about 20 minutes, you take it out, and then you put it onto your big pile of models ready for the next step, painting and magnetizing and all that good stuff. So now on to the model cleanup step. So this is where I'll clean up the model before priming. I'll go through with a hobby knife, and I'll go through with some sandpaper, like 200 grit we'll say. I'll just go through and get all the printing artifacts and the things like that off. So this will be where like the supports have made holes in the model that are overly noticeable, and where maybe some of the supports haven't quite come off properly. I'll just clean up as much of that as I can. I tend not to be too pedantic about it, because once you end up priming it and painting it, you can't really even tell most of the time. And even when you do, you could even just paint it as like battle damage or anything like that. So I tend to be a bit loosey-goosey with the whole process. I guess something to do as well is I'll go through with like an air gun, and I'll blow up all the dust that I can, because that will make priming and painting it harder later if there is dust and things like that on it. You could also clean these models a third time in some clean water with some soap, just to make sure all the dust and stuff is off it, but they didn't get too dirty when I was doing it, so I didn't bother doing that. So now we are on to the magnets. So I like to put magnets in pretty much all my vehicle models, especially things like the Leman Russ that have lots of weapon options. So I magnetize all the main weapons and things on the tank. This process, I believe, uses 12 10mm by 2mm magnets. That will be one magnet for each of the main weapons, one magnet for the hull, and then I also have 4 magnets in the tracks of the Leman Russ for how I store it, where I like to store all my models in a big metal case, and I stick them to the bottom of the metal case, and that stops them moving around when I transport them. So the main thing to do when you're doing magnets is do not put them in wrong. You will regret it, I guarantee you that. So I have a big metal plate that I will put the magnets on, and that will stop them moving around as I glue them on. And just always be sure you're doing positive to negative or negative to positive. What I like to do is I like to set them up so I have to put the downside down into the magnet, and so I just repeat to myself, down is down, down is down. I'll put it in there, and I hope for the best. We are now on to priming. So I'm not going to talk too much about the paint process that I have used, because you'll probably end up just using different colors anyway. But obviously I've put all my pieces that need to be primed. I use a piece of wood with some masking tape. I just stick them on straight to the masking tape. Make sure it's not too hot, not too cold. Make sure the humidity's okay. And then I just use pretty cheap hardware store priming paint. This is Rust-Oleum Flat Grey if you do end up wanting to use it. I found it's a pretty decent primer, especially for vehicles, because you're not going to worry too much about flooding details and things like that. Even for smaller models, I still think it's pretty good if you're just a bit careful with it and don't spray it too heavily. So once the priming process is done, you will then be onto the painting process. Like I said, I'm not going to talk about the painting process a whole bunch because you might end up using different colors. I like to make my tanks because they're kind of based on Krieg, be a bit more rusted than your normal tank, because in the lore, Krieg tend to make use of a bit of older technology. And also makes it easy to paint because any mistakes you make, you just put some rust on top of it and Bob's your uncle. And that is that. I hope you've enjoyed the finished product reveals. These models are eventually going to be used in my 12k Apocalypse campaign that I'm currently taking a part in. Make sure you keep a lookout on my channel for those videos. Some things to note about this whole process is make sure you wear a mask anytime you're using IPA or when you're sanding resin, because both things will mess you up pretty good. I'd just like to say that the total resin used for each Leman Russ is 250 grams, so 250 grams times 10 is 2.5 liters, which is about 2.5 bottles, which works out to be about $30 a bottle, so 30, 60, $75 total Australian. Also takes about 9 hours per Leman Russ to print. And one more quick little stat for you is all the footage I've shown you, if you didn't speed it up and you took out the weighting and things up until the painting process, so all the cleaning in the IPA and the magnetizing and the sanding and things, all that took 1 hour and 10 minutes. So I don't know how long it takes to assemble a real Leman Russ. If you like this video, make sure you like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more Warhammer things on the channel. And I'll catch you next time. Goodbye.